Every year you outperform my expectations and we end up running out of stuff.
I've looked at your business's growth and I've looked at our agency's growth, and it's almost been like parallel.
The amount of attention that you guys provide on the account on a daily, weekly basis, the amount of communications that you guys do is incredible.
You literally filmed that guy. You were like in your living room.
It was so bad.
But it worked.
You've enabled me to basically do this as a full-time job.
Before, to get results, we just had to turn on your ads. There it was like content. And now for us, how do we get the best ads?
Nobody does really anything above and beyond. Everybody is just kind of like, I'll check in for 2 hours, look at your account, give you an update, and we'll see you next month.
I want people when they think of EZA to be like, oh, if you want results, go work with those guys. What's going on, everyone? It's Spencer here. If you're new to the channel, I run a growth focused agency by the name of EZA Media, where we help accelerate the growth of brands with purpose. And today I have another episode of our podcast called The One. And as a reminder, it's called The One as I'm only interviewing guests or brands that we have been working with for over a year. Now, in this episode, I'm actually going to be interviewing a client that we have worked with for not one, not two, but actually 3 full years. And as of June 4th or June 5th, 2024, it has been over 3 years. And I actually slid his DMs on February 23rd, 2021, which is crazy to think about. And since that date, we have gone on to over 25x his business. And year to date now, he is up 133% in total sales. He's up 106% in total ad spend and up 10% in overall MER. He is the founder of the incredible brand Conway+Banks. Percy, welcome to the podcast, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. It's been been a week since we last chatted, and the sales this week has been good. So thank you for that so far, and thanks for everything that you've done for me over the last 3 years, man. It's been an unreal journey.
I had to time it up. I was like, okay, I got to get Percy on the podcast after a good week, I got to make sure I get the best out of you, right?
We have some bad weeks, but it's very far and few in between. So it's easy to slide that into your calendar.
I love it. Well, to kick things off, I want to start because, as I mentioned briefly in the intro, I actually slid your DMs, and it was over 3 years ago. I actually introed myself as somebody that works strictly with e-commerce stores, which to this date is actually still true. But in short, my team and I pay attention to the metrics that matter. And just for everybody who's watching, I definitely did not have a team when I sent that DM. It was me, myself, and I, the dream team. And funny enough, you responded, and I guess the rest is history, because as I mentioned again, 25xing, man, it's been a crazy 3 years. Obviously, it's been one heck of a ride, and I'm excited to finally jump into that with you today. But just to kick things off, tell us about the company. What is Conway+Banks? What do you sell? Take us through the brand.
Yeah, Conway+Banks is a hockey company. We do sell premium hockey products. The best-selling product that we have is the hockey bags, and it's very specialized because in the past, hockey bags have just been kind of like one giant bag. Picture like a garbage bag that's made of fabric, and you throw everything in there. And we kind of came into the market and said, hey, there's kind of an opportunity here to make bags better, because I looked at my personal life and I look at all the bags that I own, my camera bag, my backpacks. Everything's got like a spot for your laptop, for your lens, for your camera, for your memory card. And it's just very organized. It just kind of makes sense. I know hockey's kind of like a macho traditional sport, but kind of came to the market thinking, maybe there's an opportunity here. And then kind of the secret sauce behind it was, I started playing hockey, quite late in my life, but I ran into a bunch of friends who played hockey with me, and we used to have beers all the time in the parking lot. And one of the things we always dreamt about was having like a hockey bag that had a beer compartment in it. You can sneak it into the rink. You can be, you don't have to lug your 2-4 into the rink and have the rink guys yell at you. So that's kind of how Conway+Banks started. It was just like, can we build a better hockey bag that's got all these compartments and, also hide our beer in it? To be honest, nobody bought it. And nobody wanted the beer compartment. We realized, and when I say we, I'm kind of like you, right? It's a one-person company, but I'm just so used to saying we because like it's got this culture of like teamwork and things like that. Even like I consider you as part of the team, even though you're not on my payroll. You've been along through this entire journey, and it's been incredible. But back to the story of the bag, it was basically, can we build a better bag, better than everyone else? Some of the bigger hockey companies, they make very good stuff. stuff. They make amazing hockey sticks. They make amazing, amazing hockey skates. And I would never buy, a pair of skates that's like not from, or a stick from, not one of the big names. But I felt like bags was a real opportunity. And yeah, it turns out, I think a lot of people agree.
100%. And I think that is just goes back to the core of you are your avatar, right? And like you said, that's how you came up with the idea in the first place. And I think people who potentially are wanting to start a brand, I know there's people that are watching this that are potentially wanting to start an e-commerce business. You were just like, hey, I have this problem. There's nothing out there that can really solve it, so I'm just going to do it myself. And so I do want to ask a little bit more about that. What was kind of like the steps that you took to get going and be like, okay, I have this idea for a product. What did you do next?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty, I don't know, maybe it came natural to me because I had a background in retail. I used to work a lot with a lot of folks who are in the buying business. They import stuff from China. And maybe I just kind of absorbed that through osmosis. I kind of just understood what their job is. And so I kind of just sketched something out on a paper, on a piece of paper. I put it on like a PowerPoint slide, using the little rectangle tool and the triangle tool, try to make all the angles align. Like, I'm not a product designer by any means, but I had a good idea of like what I needed from a hockey player's perspective, because that's what I do. I play hockey. And then I kind of just left it up to the factories to say, come back to me and say, hey, you know what? I'm trying to build the best product possible. Like, cost is not really a concern. Tell me what kind of materials you would use. Tell me why. Give me a couple of options, and then we'll go from there. It literally was messaging like dozens of factories from Alibaba and trying to understand, their scale and, what they can do. And then ultimately ordering samples and iterating on those samples to kind of get to where we are. And of course, along the way, talk to a lot of coaches and other players to understand, what do they want in a bag? What is so crappy about their bag? How can we solve some of those problems? And then incorporating that into the design. And this sort of iteration process is ongoing. Like, even though I've been selling these bags for 5, 6 years or 7 years now, even, we're still getting suggestions from customers. Hey, you know what? This bag could improve in this area, and then we all obviously take a note of that and then make it better for next year. So the bag that you would have bought in 2018 is completely different actually than the one that you would buy today.
Which I think I want to circle back on that, because I want to touch on the beginning of EZA Media services versus where we are today. So I want to circle back on that, but to just kind of continue on that, and I think that's why we get along so well, is we just care so much about our product. I call our service product all the time, but I always gravitate back to like, how can I make this better, right? And you went out and asked people for feedback, and then you applied that feedback, and you just always had this product focused mindset. And I think that has served you so well, because as we'll get into, one of your biggest channels nowadays is word of mouth. Even everything that we do on the ad side, I still tell you, I'm like, your word of mouth is insane. And so many people are just like, I saw someone else who had it and I was like, wow, that's a great product. And I think that is so important for starting, or even brands or businesses right now that are at some scale, and just putting emphasis on your product and actually just having a great product experience is just so important, and it serves you so well. And I've respected how much you've continued to build your product and make it better, and consider your customers, which I just think is so awesome. And like I said, probably one of the main reasons why we get along so well. But from there, let's talk about what you started doing then to grow the business. So obviously, like I said, I slid the DMs in in 2021.
Yeah, thank you for that.
But what were you, if you can remember, what were you doing previously? Do you remember what you were doing to try to get sales? Maybe take us through, what you were doing prior to, hiring.
Yeah,
Not the
I
team, but
wasn't
me.
I wasn't doing a whole lot, to be honest, Spencer. I was kind of afraid to advertise. I'm one of those people, like, advertising. Maybe it's like a point of personal pride. Like, advertising doesn't really work for me. Like, when I see an ad, I just think critically about it. Like, what are they doing here? Like, why is this product actually good? Like, do I want this car? Am I gonna drive it down a mountain road? Like, that's not gonna happen. Like, I live in, Toronto. We don't have no mountains here. There's no ocean. So for me, like, it took me a long time to convince myself that, I needed to advertise. For a very long time, early on in the company's life, I did not do any advertising at all. Everything was through word of mouth. And we had some sales trickle in, and then at one point in 2020, I decided maybe I should give it a go, like, and let the data speak for itself and see if it's actually effective, because I don't feel like, I should project my views of advertising on everyone else. Obviously, all these other big companies are doing it. Maybe I should give it a go. I think in January of 2020, I started, throwing a few dollars here and there at Facebook and Instagram advertising, and it seemed to have, a little bit of legs. And I thought at that time, I'm like, okay, maybe this is too much for me because this is a whole new world. It's a skill that I don't really have. I can acquire it. I love learning new shit. And this was a nice journey for me to kind of get to know how advertising works. But at the end of the day, if I'm trying to grow the company, like there was 100 other things I needed to do to try to grow the company and make the bags better and provide people with more sizes and colors and so many things. I couldn't afford to, allocate my time that way. And so you conveniently slid into my DMs like right at that critical moment when I was starting to look for somebody. And I think you mentioned you said some metrics or something, and that's really important to me because like to me there's a lot of people out there who try to pawn off their services that they'll say everything you want to hear, but at the end of the day oh yeah, you got 500,000 eyeballs. Well, how many of them actually bought anything? Like that's not a metric that matters to me. Eyeballs don't pay the bills.
I think I actually might have said that on the call.
Maybe I stole that from you. Eyeballs don't pay bills.
They don't pay the bills, man.
Oh. So yeah, that's kind of what I did before. Not a whole lot in summary.
I guess from really like usually a follow-up question is like, what have we done differently? But I think the main thing with you is we just turned it on. You weren't running anything, so it's like, hey, let's just get it out there and see what happens. Which I also think is just so cool. Like for even now, it's a lot more rare now. I mean, because at the end of the day, anybody that starts an e-commerce business is typically like, well, Facebook ads is just part of it. Like I'm pretty sure now when you set up a Shopify store, it's like, by the way, install Facebook as well and go turn on ads. But it was such a unique point where you just hadn't really done it. And what was funny is I think I remember telling you as well, like when we did a little audit in your account, you had like $300 spent and you were at like a 6x return on ad spend or 7x return on ad spend. I was like, dude, just throttle this. And you're like, I don't really know how. So I was like, all right, well, I'll do it for you. So yeah, I remember that. And I think I want to get into things that we've done differently and maybe some things that have changed. But really what we did for you is we just turned it on. And I remember that first month, and this is taking me back to, oh gosh, do you remember Zen? You remember
Zen?
Zen?
My goodness. Yeah, I do remember. It was a good 4 or 5 weeks run with him.
Yeah, he was. And so the funniest thing was for everybody that knows, like I was learning Facebook ads at the same time. And I think I was pretty transparent with Percy. I mean, maybe not as transparent as I should have been, but I basically said, I was like, hey, me and the team was like me and Zen. And Zen was kind of teaching me, and, he was obviously running the ads. And I realized that like what he was doing, I was like, I could probably do this. And he was taking half of, I think our retainer at the time was $1,000 a month, something like that.
It was ridiculously low. Yeah.
We need to go back to those days, as Percy. But
let me know when I'm ready.
So I was like, yeah, this guy, like he's taking half of this retainer. And I was like, I think I could do this. And I think that's one thing that I also I'm so excited to dive into is like, I've grown so much with you. And I feel like I've looked at your business's growth and I've looked at our agency's growth, and it's almost been like parallel, which is kind of creepy to look at. So we've just been growing the same way. But I just think it was one of those things where we just turned it on and people started loving it. And I think that's also super important. I still remember the image ad to this day. We just had one really great image ad. It was on your best selling point, which is the organization, the pockets, all that kind of stuff. And from there, we really just ran with that. And we just had one ad that we ran through. And the first year was obviously great. I think we 10X, was it 10X the first year?
I think we 10X the first year, yeah, which was crazy.
I mean, for not doing any advertising, we finally, you convince yourself to do advertising and it paid off, which is great. And then the following year, just fast forwarding to 2022, I think we might have actually taken a little break. I think you cut me off for a little bit.
Yeah, I think I took a break because like in spring the business was like a little bit slow. I'm like a little bit cautious. For those who don't know, I'm a super risk averse kind of guy. So I'm like, I don't know. I think February, March, not a lot of people are gonna buy stuff. Maybe just tell Spencer to come back. In winter and in the fall. Yeah, maybe that was a mistake because that was probably some lost sales there.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, I don't even know if you had anything to sell because I remember all of 2022 it was just pre-orders.
Oh yeah,
It was
yeah.
pre-order the whole time, which I think was again another learning experience for us. Like we had never done pre-orders, and you're like, "Hey, should we do some pre-orders?" And I was like, I don't know. I guess so. And then we did it, right? And I remember we
Yeah.
built that landing page because we started doing some CRO stuff for you as well. But I think yeah, one thing that was I want to draw attention to is like we did take that break, but we did end up coming back and working together. And I think that's something as well. Like I've always been super flexible like that. And I think if you are in a position where it's like, hey, we just need a pause, or like, hey, let's just like take a breather. And I think again, like you 10x your business. For most people, like if you were to 10x my business right now, I'd be like, what is going on? Like for a lot of people, it's like it's crazy the amount of like operations, and now you've got customer service, and I'm sure at that time you were learning so many new things and trying to deal with so many different things as well. So it's like I think taking a second to kind of reset, and that's something that I always have to tell myself is like, what's the rush? But I mean, just to end the point, like I think it was smart to do it because I think we were able to come back even stronger that year, because then the following year obviously was another incredible year, and I think we were even more prepared. And again, on top of that, like I was just constantly learning new things through you and through some of the other businesses that we were working with. And 2022 was another incredible year, and I think we same thing ran into inventory issues again. Was that
Every
right?
year, every year, every year you outperform my expectations, and we end up running out of stuff. It's become a routine, almost unacceptable.
But I think it's important though, because one thing is it's like you said, like you were very risk reverse. Like you were like, hey, I don't want to be stuck with 300K worth of inventory, because I over purchase. And I think the way that we played it is again another thing that we probably agree on is like I'm like, hey, I'm super risk reverse. Like, hey, let's just do some pre-orders if we need to.
Yeah.
But again, same thing, and it ended up working out. And I think fast forwarding into 2023, I think 2023 is when I want to get into my next question here, is when things started to change, because we were just doing a lot of media buying, we were doing some CRO, but in 2023, and I remember this is one of my most memorable moments, was a question I want to get to as well, but we started doing content. And now even more so in 2024, you've probably heard me say content more. You're probably sick of hearing me say it. But I want to ask you, what were some of the things from your side that really changed over those years? Because I think what's cool is we've just seen how much the platforms have changed. We've seen how much that you've grown, and really we've had to adapt. So I wanted to ask from your perspective, what are some of the things, and obviously I alluded to it with content, but what are some of the things that really changed in 2023 and now in 2024?
Yeah, I think content is definitely one. Number two is making more products available to everybody. I think 2023 we released a lot of colors. We tried to provide customers with a pretty special experience, like the hockey bags. In the past, you buy it from the bag, that's the bag you get. I mean, Conway+Banks, we're the first company and the only company right now that does personalization. So Spencer, you want your name on it, you want your number on the bag, it's being shipped to you within a week with your name and number on it, just the way you want it. Nobody else does that. I mean, we just that going back to that customer service focus. And then when we launched that sort of personalization program, content was how we did it. It was like, how do we communicate to people that we've got these awesome bags with their name and number on it? And we reached out to a bunch of folks who have had our bags in the past, but they didn't get their name on it, and we shipped them a new one with their name and number. They started creating content. I mean, content's been around, like content's been important for a very long time, right? But again, I'm very slow at these things. I'm like a little bit older. I'm not quite in this TikTok generation. So I'm glad you continue to push that on me to let me know that this is important and to do, because otherwise I would have just been giving you image assets for forever, and we don't have a lot of variety, and that's kind of like not very good, because images don't resonate with every single person out there, right? Some people want a video, some people want music, some people don't want music, some people want subtitles and not subtitles. So I do appreciate your very structured approach in providing me that guidance in terms of like what kind of content we need to create, what sort of hooks we might want to test out with the content creators to have a more effective piece of content for ads. Because I think it's one thing to create like an organic piece of content. There's obviously like a lot of crossover between organic content and like paid content, but I think some of the principles are very similar in that you want it to be engaging, you want to have a reward sort of like in the middle and at the end, all those things that you talked about to create like that's been helpful, because in the past it was just like send a bag to somebody, let's see if they can shoot a video, get it back, and then let's try it out and see if it works. There wasn't a lot of structure. There wasn't a whole lot of, feedback or instruction to the content creators who a lot of times they're just doing this in their spare time. Like they're not professional content creators, a lot of these guys. It's just like a hockey mom with their kid and, they're going to the rink. They take a picture of the bag and their kid and they're very happy. And that's great, but it's not maybe the most effective way of using, their time and our time.
Yeah. And I think it's important to also call out that we were really resourceful. And again, going back to like things that I learned through, I mean, one of our best ads when, the wheel version came out, which I think I've made a video about this, but just talking about how I think one of the main things that have helped us scale your business so much is, again, just your focus on product. And I remember when you came out with the wheel version, it just absolutely crushed. And we were able to, I think the next year we 2x or 3x the following year or whatever it was. And, that was just all because we had another variation, another option to provide. But going back to content, you literally filmed that content. You were like in your living room.
It was so bad.
But it worked, right? And so that was the thing. Whereas I feel like so many, like I think there's two types of people. Like there's the people that are just like, oh, like that's not going to work. I'm not going to do it. Or they're just like, oh, I need to go and have this like super high end production. Like, I mean, you were in your living room in your socks rolling this bag along the ground. And then the funniest thing was, I'm not sure if you remember, but I was on a really big content creation binge. I think this might have been 2022, maybe 2023. I can't remember exactly, but I literally filmed videos for you. I was like, dude, like 7 the bag. I was like, I'm going to jump in it. And one of our other top performers was, I was really obsessed with this idea of content because for me, it was this massive light bulb. And I think for a lot of brands right now too, it still can be this massive light bulb because so many people, they just put so much emphasis on media buying. And I know we've had this conversation so much and we still test media buying. And don't get me wrong, you need somebody that like knows what they're doing inside the ad account. But when we are able to find content and ad creatives that can really scale, it's like that's where the big gains were. And I started to notice that late 2022 and in 2023. And I was like, you know what, Percy? I was like, just send me the bag. And I want to see if I can find that ad. I'm not sure you remember the one with the maple syrup. And
oh man, I love the hunter's hat and everything, man.
I should have worn that for the podcast, but the same thing there. And then I went and we filmed a video with my buddy and I went into his place because he had all the hockey gears. I don't play hockey anymore, but he had all the hockey gear. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Like we can, kick your bag and like kick over your standing tree. Cause a lot of people, if anybody's playing hockey, go get a Conway+Banks bag, but they know the tree, the Christmas tree that you got to put all your gear on. And so we like kick that over and like, we were just being resourceful. Like that was the main thing. And I think any content is better than no content at all. And so just trying to be resourceful. And I think those ads, we probably spent, a decent amount on them. And it was really just, it was just organic, like us, again, knowing the customer and like our messaging was great. And I think that was, one of the main things that really did help us scale further. And I think, leading towards to where we're at now and what you're talking about, like now we have a more refined process where we're really thinking through the things. I think that's the next level. But that first step is just make sure you have content going in. And I think I do want to give, massive kudos to you as well, because this year you've been a content machine. So I kind of want to ask about that. What's it been like? Like, what have you been doing? Because I know there's a lot of brands that are trying to generate content, or their agencies are telling them to generate content like we're telling you. What are some of those things? You want to maybe walk me through what you've been doing to try to generate content for creatives?
Yeah, I think it goes back to finding some structure and like a methodology to creating content, right? I think in like 2020, 2021, when we were creating content, it was just like throw whatever at the wall, see what sticks, whether it's images or like short little videos. It was not very structured. 2022, 2023, like we started to transition to a more structured approach. Like, can we do a storyboard? What is the point we're trying to get across here? Who's our audience? How can we reach them? What resonates with them? All those things, and think about how we can build out a video or build out a video with a content creator that is more aligned with, what we need to communicate. And in 2024, this year, it's more focused on like, how do we get more people involved in the game that are recognizable, right? It's content creators with a bigger following, former Olympians, whether they're, a YouTuber with a big following. all these folks, a lot of them, they already create content in one form or another. Whether you know it or not, if you play hockey, you're on TV, you're in the Olympics, you're a content creator. Like you are the content, you are the marketing machine. Like there's a reason why you're on the ice because people enjoy watching you, and there's a lot to be said for that. So I think getting more recognizable faces associated with a brand is helpful, but at the same time providing them again with some guidance, but also a lot of creative, room so that they can go
Freedom.
and create the piece of content that they want and that aligns with their brand and that resonates with their audience. I think is also important. So we're still trying to kind of find the sweet spot here, but I think it's been a good start so far in the first half of the year.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things when we were filming the content, we were just kind of filming and doing whatever, and then we started finding people and giving them a little bit more direction. But now I think we're at some level of creators that we're working with that they just know what's going to convert because that's what they do, right? Like we're not content creators, so we're just doing what we think is best. But those people, like they got to have that that creative room and creative freedom to do their thing. I have a question on that. Then, how are you finding these people? Like, are you just DMing them? Are you emailing them? What are you doing to actually get in contact with some of these people?
Yeah, a lot of it is just DMs. I am using a platform called Open Sponsorship,
Okay.
which is kind of like a dating site for brands and athletes who want to get their names out there. They basically, it's a platform so you can connect with them, you can message them, you can make a deal on there. It's quite organized, but it does the same thing as a DM. It's just that these athletes, they get so many DMs, it's just hard to get their attention sometimes. And so sometimes having a platform kind of message them on your behalf is a little bit more creates a little bit more urgency. But I would say, if you're a brand starting out, you don't have the budget for that, or if you just you just want to grind it out, it's very feasible. They're just human beings. They just want their attention too. So yeah, message them, and some of them will respond. You'll get 100, out of 100, you'll probably get 99 no's, but you'll get one yes.
And that's the one that matters.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to transition into some memorable moments here. So obviously it's always, it's not always sunshine and rainbows is what I say, but I want to get into one. Well, maybe let's start with this. What are some things that have been very memorable for you? I know I have one that I'm going to get to, but I just want to know from your side, because obviously it's been quite a journey. So I think this whole journey has just been memorable, and again, for both of us has been so fulfilling. But what for you has been one or some few of your most memorable moments over the years?
I think when you talked about building out that video in 2023. Yeah, I think that was a very memorable moment for me because what it represented was like the entrepreneurial spirit that I value. And like one of the reasons why I continue working with you, Spencer, is because like you go above and beyond to try new things, to try to make things better. Like that was totally outside of your scope of work and like our agreement in terms of like what's included in the retainer. But the fact that you went ahead and you did that, you took your time to go and try something that was a little bit different to try to add value to my business, like that meant a lot to me. And you've had other examples in the past where like you'll just go through my website once in a while to like look for things to improve, and not necessarily to sell your own service or your team's service, but it's just like, hey, this is a quick tweak, try it out, see if it works, if this might make things better. I think like that is what's memorable about our relationship. Like we have very, very similar values in terms of like always trying to iterate and make things better and add value. But obviously, you've enabled me to basically do this as a full-time job and not having, the shackles of, having to wake up at 7 in the morning, go to work, not see my kid until 6 p.m., 7 p.m. That's what's most memorable to me, because now I'm able to spend time with my 2-year-old, with my 4-year-old, and it's like the most rewarding experience ever. But you've done so many good things in terms of like making sure that I'm able to succeed, like giving me the confidence that this is not just like a weekend side hustle. Because I mean, we talked about the numbers earlier before we were doing, like I'd be happy to get like 3 or 4 sales a week, and that's great money to go on vacation at the end of the year. But like now this is paying my bills and paying for my kids' food. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, that's awesome, man. That's so awesome. And I remember, I think actually on that point, and then I'll do a more stats one, but I remember, I think for me on that, I remember you sent a photo of Stanley. I think it was after November, and Stanley is your 4-year-old, right? And sent that to me, and I remember actually I even shared that with my parents, and I was like, wow, this was so cool, because you were like, this little guy thanks you, and he was just so cute. I think he was like eating an ice cream or something like that. I was like, man, that was just so awesome. And I feel like, like we always talk about the numbers on the screen. It's like there's other people on the other side of that, and obviously with what we're doing, it's like we have lives outside of all the craziness that's going on, and just being able to see that impact was probably the most memorable thing for me. I still remember that day. But I think one other thing that was really memorable for me, more on like the data nerdy side, was I think it was our first year in 2021. It was like on Black Friday. We did more sales that day than you did the entire month of like February or whatever it was. And I mean, at that time, I was just like, because that for me, even seeing those kinds of numbers, I was like, oh my, I was like, this in a day? Even for me, I was like,
can we do this every day? Can it be Black Friday like every single day? That'd be awesome.
That's the goal. But I mean, really, that was for me. I just remember that was such like a pivotal point even in my journey, and then obviously with the business as well, where I was like, wow, this is like a real thing. I was like, you can really do this. And I was like, holy cow, like this is insane. And that for me, those two things, I was just like, and then obviously the next Black Friday was even crazier, and then I can't wait for this Black Friday. That's the goal. But yeah, it's been I think there's a lot of memorable moments, but yeah, I appreciate you.
You're right. I think that one was very important because like up to that point in 2021, like we had started scaling throughout the year, and we had definitely seen some like really good results. But you just never know until like Christmas, until Black Friday, until because you could just have like a dead day or a dead week, and that could just like kind of like break you.
Yeah.
So like seeing that validation on that weekend was just incredible. It was like, okay, we actually do have something here. Like it wasn't just like luck that we've, had these sales throughout the year, but like people have been waiting for this day to try to get something on sale, and they're here now, and they bought, which was incredible.
Yeah. It was so cool. You kind of touched a little bit on what keeps you working with us. You mentioned that like we're always innovating stuff, and I think that is, again, like I've talked about, it's part of the reason why we get along so well. Is like you're always innovating and working on your business. I'm always innovating, working on our business. Curious to ask you though, and obviously you have never worked with anybody else. I've kept you to myself. You never worked with another agency, but is there anything else that you feel like we've done? I mean, obviously having someone that cares about your business and is constantly working on trying to deliver a better service is important, but is there anything else that you feel like that keeps you working with us specifically?
I think it is that attention to detail and going above and beyond. Like I haven't worked with other ad agencies for media buy, but I have worked with other folks who have tried to improve my email workflows, who have tried to improve my SEO and improve my efficiency on ad spend in Google, for example. And like a lot of these guys, they do a fine job, but nobody does really anything above and beyond. Everybody is just kind of like, I'll check in for 2 hours, look at your account, give you an update, and we'll see you next month. So the amount of attention that you guys provide on the account on a daily, weekly basis, the amount of communications that you guys do, proactively and also reactively when I have a question is incredible. It's like you guys are part of the team, and I said that earlier in the call. Like I consider you guys part of the team, even though you guys aren't on payroll. But I don't consider some of my other contractors like that in the past part of the team. They're just kind of there. Absolutely incredible level of effort, I would say, as well as results put into this account. So incredible 3 years.
That's awesome. All right. Well, few last questions for you here. What's next for Conway+Banks, and what's next for you? I know we've had some conversations about things that are coming, so I would love for you to share that and talk a little bit more about your plans with everything and share that.
Well, I can't share too much, but definitely there's going to be some new products coming down the road. Every year we launch a new colorway, so this year there will be a new colorway for fall winter. It will be an exciting one. I think it'll be something that resonates with a lot of people who like something a little bit different. So not like the traditional kind of black, navy kind of, I don't want to say boring, but more conservative common colors.
Not like Quack Attack?
Quack. It might be something along those lines. You'll have to see. You'll have to see. But definitely new products are coming outside of the bag category as well.
So awesome. Love
Yeah.
that. Final two here. What's one phrase or saying or quote that you want to share?
My favorite quote came from a university professor I had in I think 2013. He mentioned this. It was something that I believed in for a very long time, but I kind of never just put a phrase around it. And it's nothing really, incredible. It's just always be learning. Just like life is like a lifelong, journey of learning. You're never too old to learn, and if you're continuously learning, you're always improving and you'll always get better. So that applies to business, that applies to, personal life, finance, whatever it is, working out, whatever it is that you do. It's something that stuck with me for a long time.
I think that sums up our entire relationship, man.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. It's I feel like we do share a lot of similar values, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, like it's the entire time. And obviously, when we started, I was learning. Throughout the years, I've been learning. Even today, I'm still learning so much. And it's always it's funny. It's like you feel like you learn something, and then it opens a whole new set of problems that then you got to learn new stuff for, right? And I think it is. And like I said, like our growth has been parallel in the sense that it's like every step that we've scaled up, it's like, okay, now I'm dealing with this, and then I'm like, hey, what's going on with that? And you're like, oh, hey, I'm learning this. And it's been really cool, honestly, because I feel like as much as I've been trying to, I wouldn't say educate, but like I've been sharing with you the things that we're learning, the things that we're seeing from other people or from my sources, and then even vice versa, like you're sharing things that's working and sharing things like on the on the product side and on the actual, because obviously we're only on the front end, like you're dealing with everything on the back end. And I know like you've even done things of like you've been learning how to like manage 3PLs and all these different kinds of stuff. And so I think maybe down the line, man, I don't know, we'll have to see. We might have to partner on a brand or something and really
It'll be an all-star team. It'll be pretty successful, I think. We got a good shot at it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think no, that phrase is awesome. And I think one thing I would add to that is always be applying as well. Always be learning, always be applying, because I think that's one thing that we have also done an incredible job of, and more so for you. Like it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, I need to add more products and like I should do, but like you take action on it. And I even remember like the timelines that you were doing this. You're like, oh yeah, I've got this coming, I've got that coming, and that's going to be here in the next 2 months. I'm like, this guy's like moving so fast. Holy cow. So I think just like the rate that you apply things as well is, again, incredibly impressive. And as much as I say this with a lot of our clients, but even you specifically, is like as much as we love to take credit for, hey, we turned on the marketing and we help you with a lot of sales and managing that kind of stuff. Like none of this is possible without your product, and none of this is possible without you pushing as hard as you are on the back end. Because we're only one piece of the puzzle, right? So everything that you've done as well, just to give you some again some appreciation, like it's not possible without you. And there's
teamwork,
a lot of
brother.
We work with a lot of clients, and obviously we love all of our clients equally, but working with you has just been so amazing, man. And
I'm the oldest kid, right? Come on.
we're so excited, and like it. Even being a part of this brand, I think that's something where now we're at that stage as well, where you are building more of a brand, right? With some of these strategic, influencers that we're working with, and some pretty decent sized names in the space. Now being a part of this is like, it's so cool to see how this literally, I mean, for people that don't know, when I met Percy, he was selling these things out of his garage. Like you had them,
Yeah.
when we jumped on the Zoom call, you had it behind you. You're like, oh yeah, that's getting picked up in a few days. And so, it's so cool to see everything evolve like that, and always be learning, I think, and always be applying is a great phrase. And like I said, I think sums up what we've done. Final thing here is you get to ask me a question. So have you thought?
Oh, okay. I've been waiting for this one.
Here it is. This is it.
I mean, you've grown your agency a lot in the last 3 years, and I've seen the growth. Like I've seen the change, the evolution in the team, the evolution in the way we communicate, the processes that you guys have. One thing that impressed me most, when we started working together, was this very structured approach, right? Like project plans, accountability, like here's when we're going to do it, here's why we're doing it, and when it's done, you provide sort of a feedback on like what happened, what went well, what didn't go well. That was like very clear to me why you guys, like, you were able to be successful and grow the number of different clients that you have. And obviously you're delivering the results that you guys agree to. But like as you've gone through this journey of being like a one person agency to now having a much bigger team, like what is the one challenge that you have had in terms of facilitating that growth, right? Because for me it was, okay, more ads, spend, more better creatives, get more inventory, get better products. For you, it's very different because it's a service-based business. I've always been interested in learning about how you would grow how you did this, because are you just picking up the phone and calling like 1,000 people a day? Like, what's going on here?
I sell. We just churn through clients like crazy. That's a great question. I think my biggest challenge, and I think it hasn't hit me fully yet, and I know it's a big challenge that will come for me, is I think just instilling, I've realized now it's more about culture than anything, especially because, I mean, our service is people, right? I can't just crank my ad spend and deliver more results, or deliver more services. Like, I have to find the people. And so I think one of the biggest challenges up until now has been finding people that just have the same kind of values. And the truth is like, we didn't even really have core values as a company until like late last year, when I realized we got to, so for people that don't know, our team's about, oh gosh, like 22, 23 people now. And when I met Percy, it was me and one other person. So I think having core values, just to answer that question of like, that's been a big challenge with people, is like having values of just like, hey, here's my vision, and here's how I want things to operate, and here's how I want to treat people and treat our clients. And so one of our core values is like, our number one is results obsessed. So it's like, do whatever it takes to get great results for clients. And I think especially in the service-based industry, like sometimes the bar is so low. It's like they expect to lose a client after 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, where with us, I'm like, if we sign a brand, like, you're not leaving. Like, you're stuck with me, and we're gonna figure this out together.
Yeah, I know how that feels.
3 years in, yeah. So I think for me, to again answer your initial question, one of the biggest challenges has been finding people that, it's kind of a typical entrepreneur thing to say, but that care as much as I do. But I think trying to find a way to instill values, and again, like attention to detail is a big value of ours. Accelerated excellence is one that we say, where it's like the speed at which we move, and it's just like, wow, these guys move fast. Like, we onboard a new client, and it's like, boom, ads are live. Or for example, you send us a piece of content, and we got it live in a day or two, compared to 2 weeks, right? So there's some of these things that I've just honestly, and to credit you, man, I've learned through working with you and working through a few of our early days clients, where like I just learned things. It's like, this is how I think they want to be treated, and then we got rewarded for that, because obviously you've stayed. And I've tried to really bundle that up. And so one of the biggest challenges has been finding people that really want to instill, because obviously it's my company, right? So like, I'm gonna care the most, but having people that are incentivized, I think, intrinsically, so like internally, and then also externally as well. We have performance bonuses with a lot of our clients, which
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is, that's been that challenge, is finding people that really just care for our clients and want to just deliver great results. And I think one of the other biggest challenges has just been trying to apply what we're learning and get results. Like, I think for the longest time, when we were early stages, is just trying to get results consistently. For you, there would be months where it's like results weren't great, and then other months they were great, and we still even deal with that now. But I think that's one of my biggest and ongoing challenges, is finding a way to just be consistent. Like, say we do something, we do it, right? Just being like very consistent in that fashion. And I think that's something that's always going to be an ongoing pursuit, because things change so much.
Sure.
Before, to get results, we just had to turn on your ads, and then from there it was like content. And now for us, I feel like, again, another big challenge is like, well, how do we get the best ads? So like, how can we get better at making ads? Like, and that's been obviously, a challenge that we faced this year, of trying to get more winning ads. And I think all in all, for me, it always just comes down to people. Like, how can we get people that care as much and can deliver great results? And then from there, how do we, as a team and as a an agency, as a firm, how can we be consistent? Because I just really, and it stopped me from scaling even bigger, is like, I just really want to make sure that we don't become that agency that is like, oh yeah, they're okay. Like, I want people, when they think of EZA, to be like, oh, if you want results, go work with those guys. Like, they'll take care of you. And so that's been one of the biggest challenges, is how do I build that? And it's going to be a big thing to build. But over the years, hopefully that answers what's been a big
Sounds
challenge.
like you have some ambitious plans there, man. You went from 1 to 23, and you don't feel like this is the peak. So good on you, man. Your efforts are obviously paying off. I do have one more question before we go. I talked about earlier, you're making the transition from not running ads at all to dabbling in ads on my own and spending like, a few $100s and getting some results, and then realizing, hey, maybe I should get someone to help me with this. To some of the other small brands out there who are doing the same thing or experimenting or thinking about making the leap, like what would your guidance be in terms of like how they should allocate their time versus when they should reach out to an agency like yourself or a different agency on when should they look for help? Sometimes people just don't know when they need help. They just think they can keep doing this for a very long time.
I think that's a great question. That's something that even now, as we've scaled, and obviously, as you know, like we've increased our prices maybe 25x.
Unfortunately, that's okay. Not 25x. Fortunately.
But yeah, so I think it's one of those things where if you're starting out, I think even just on YouTube, like, and that's why I've enjoyed doing YouTube as well. It's just like, go and watch a couple of videos if you want to watch my YouTube or somebody else's YouTube and just get it going. Because at the end of the day, like if your product is good and you're following some kind of decent strategy, you're going to get it going. And then from there, if you're like, hey, I really don't have time to oversee this, then I think there's kind of two things that you can do. Number one, you can just go and hire like a freelancer who can just work part-time to like manage it and, potentially just help you a little bit. Or you can hire an agency that is going to grow with you. Because like at the end of the day, if you have less than, because let's be honest, if we met, now with our price, like I would have been like, we can't really help you, Percy, like we're too expensive. So I think if you can find someone that, because at the end of the day, you probably had some kind of idea that, I wasn't an expert. Like, I was charging you, I think our retainer was $1,000. So it's like, you probably knew that I wasn't like, a full on expert, but like you probably saw something that you liked and that, we wanted to work together and all this kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of magic in that. And that's why like I, as I consult with some other programs now, and there's a lot of like just hungry agency owners out there and, guys that want to, and gals that are wanting to learn and grow. And like, I think if you're starting out as well, finding someone that's going to be dedicated to that and is going to work with you on a lower retainer, but at least has like the baseline idea or is maybe getting consulting from someone who knows more, I think that's also a great partnership. And I always tell people, I'm like, hey, if you have less than, $2,000 in total budget or like $1,500 in total budget, like go and find one of those agency owners that's like really hungry, just getting going, obviously is learning, but you guys can learn together and, voila, here's our story. Or you can go and get consulting. And I think that's probably what I would have mentioned to you is like, hey, let's like, here's what we do and just do it, right? Like follow our systems. But the thing is when you're starting out in your bootstrap, you don't have time and you don't have a lot of money, right? So it's like, it's the toughest, it's the double whammy, right? So I think honestly, if I'm to push people in a direction, just because, it's worked out for us, doesn't mean it'll work out for everyone, but finding an agency that, is going to give you the time and attention, because at the end of the day, for that $1,000, dude, I was working some serious hours on your account, but I was learning. So it was worth it for me, right? So it was like, it was that thing where you were okay with not having someone that was an absolute expert, because, I was going to grow with you, but you were still having someone put a lot of time and attention to it, which I think is a great route to go. And I'm working on trying to find more like startup agencies that I can refer to for some of those clients. Cause at the end of the day, sometimes it is just nice to have someone do it, like you mentioned. But then the other option I would say is, just invest in yourself and like get some consulting. And that's why we have our consultation program now, as well as for, to be honest, it's been a lot of like bigger brands to my surprise, but even for brands that are just starting out, like go and learn it. And then at least you have that skill, and then you can hire someone, or you'll know to hire someone that actually knows what they're doing. So I think those are kind of the two ways that I would go about it. And yeah.
No, that's a good answer, because a lot of times when you're interviewing, I think when I was interviewing you, I didn't really know what I was looking for. It's like, I need a guy who's hungry, who kind of knows what he's talking about, at least know more than me. And then we'll go from there. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I'm not looking for like the world leader in digital media. Maybe you're getting closer to that now, but definitely knowing the right questions to ask is the toughest part. But now there's ChatGPT and stuff like that, so people can leverage that. It's a different world now.
I think one thing that I would tell people to avoid that are just starting out, unless you have capital and you've like raised or something like that, like don't go and hire a big massive agency, because if you're paying a big massive agency like $1,000 or $1,500, like you said, they're gonna have one guy who's managing, like you said, with some of those Google firms, like they do your, once a month report and that's it. Like they're not really giving you time and attention. So I would way way rather go with like a startup hungry, like driven agency than a big firm. Obviously big firms, they're big firms for a reason. They probably do great stuff, but that's if you're paying them and you're in their higher tier of clients and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say more than anything, yeah, just having some kind of idea is good. But I always say if you don't have evidence, for now we have a lot of evidence, so I can say to people like, hey, we've taken brands to $1 million a month. Whereas before, I think when you asked like, can you send some references, I sent you a website that like my contracted developer did or something like that. I don't even think we worked with them. It was just like somebody that I knew worked with them. I was like, oh my gosh. But if it makes sense, like if you don't have evidence, then use logic, right? Okay, I understand you don't have a lot of case studies or you haven't done this for a lot of brands before, but is what you're saying makes sense? And I think at least if maybe I got to find that call recording.
You did some homework. You were able to answer at least some of my questions. Satisfactory.
Yeah. So at least if it logically makes sense, then that's always a good sign. Awesome. Okay, well, Percy, it has been awesome, man, to chat and go through everything and relive and get some nostalgia flowing here.
It's always nice chatting with you, Spencer. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate the time, man. And for anybody that is interested in learning more about Percy or his business, his links are in the description below. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.